You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hey guys, it's so good to be back with you all again. And may I be the first to wish you happy Thanksgiving if you're listening early on Thursday morning. This is episode number 517 of the Mighty Blue Show, and I'm gearing up for my third Appalachian Trail through hike in March 2026. You know, when I started doing this podcast, and I published that first episode back in September 2016, I never realised how apposite the title would become. After all, I'd only done that one hike at the time, so Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail was a bit of a stretch at that time. Since then, of course, I feel like I've basically lived on the trail, with a second through hike in 2019, several visits back to the trail for 3 or 4 day hikes, and now a third through hike attempt next year. If there was one thing I could change, maybe the subtitle, referring to my midlife crisis. I think it should be an advancing years crisis now. We have 3 sections to the show today. First up, we're going to meet Tom Margaria, or Father Tom, who was part of Dave Santi's Over the Hill gang on the AT. Tom was actually partway through his Eastern Continental Trail, a 5,700-mile behemoth, and I think you'll enjoy his reflections this week, especially how meeting up with the Over the Hill gang was just what he needed at that time. After Tom, we're going to meet Tayson Whitaker, a real-life entrepreneur and owner of Outdoor Vitals, an organisation I hadn't heard of before, but one which is extremely impressive in its business model and the scope of services that it offers. We'll meet Tayson after Tom. Then, the latest in my accountability blog, during which I talk about Tayson a bit more and the value his company is providing to me. In this week's post, I track my training progress after nearly 4 weeks of sweat and tears, and I tell you more about the choices I'm making with regards to the gear that I've accumulated so far, as well as the companies I'll be dealing with in my choice of tent and pack. That is all to come, but we're going to start by meeting the very calm Tom Margaria, or Father Tom. Our guest today hiked for some of the time with Dave Santi, or Freebird, during Dave's successful through hike this year. I was always intrigued by the mentions of Father Tom in Dave's report, so I asked him on the show. This is Tom Margaria, or Father Tom. Hey Tom, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hey, how are you?
Good to see you. First, you better tell me how you're feeling right now. You feeling good?
I am feeling good, yes. Still some numbness in the feet, some stiffness in the joints, but I'm just plugging away, getting back to my usual routines, and I feel good. And
that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
and
nice.
Because this year you did quite a bit more than Dave and the rest of the Over the Hill gang. Tell us what you've recently completed.
Well, not to take anything away, because it's funny, because when I talk about the Eastern Continental Trail, which is what I started out attempting, and evidently, and in the end I was able to complete. You refer to just the Appalachian Trail. It's
yes,
and you find yourself saying that and realizing you got to correct yourself. There's no shame in doing just the Appalachian Trail. But the Eastern Continental Trail. I was recently retired from the FDNY, and that's the fire department of the city of New York, and I was looking at doing the Appalachian Trail, something I wanted to get into when I was in my 20s and never got around to. Yeah. And then the Eastern Continental Trail got on my radar, and
well, that's why I want to talk about that. So
yeah,
let's start with that as a headline then. When you look back now, how do you personally describe what the Eastern Continental Trail is and what it meant for you to walk all 5,700 plus miles of it? Now, what does it mean to walk that, and what does that trail conjure up in your mind?
Well, it's it's something. It's kind of like when I was like I said, when I was in my 20s, I wanted to do something big. When I got out and I did a day or 2 days, 3 days on a trail, I always wanted to see what was around the next corner.
Yes.
And there's always that. I just want to keep going. I don't want to go back. And so there was always that in my head. I want to get on a trail and just keep going. And so when when I was looking at the Appalachian Trail as the thing to do, I wondered why it didn't start in Florida. So you could say, well, I walked from Florida to Maine, did the whole East Coast,
Sure.
and so I Googled that, and next thing you know, the Eastern Continental Trail popped up, and at first it was that's ridiculous. Who would do that? But I couldn't get it out of my mind, and I didn't know if I could do 100 miles, let alone 5,700. But there was neighbors that I didn't even tell, and because I didn't know if I'd be back in a week or two. But
Sure.
I got on and I kept going. I even had a conversation with my son, my middle guy, James, and he was we were talking about, hey, what am I going to do when I first get out there? And we were talking about, hey, listen, you just start off easy with 10 miles a day and all. And
Yeah.
I think after 2 days, I told him, yeah, I did 20 miles yesterday. And he was like,
dear.
well, that wasn't the plan, But,
I want to come back to the physical makeup of the trail in a moment, because as you say,
Sure.
yours started Florida, ended well north of Maine.
Yes.
But for now, I want to talk for a moment about you, Tom. Your nickname, Father Tom, actually started, as you say, in a New York City firehouse, but not on trail. So how did your faith show up in that very tough environment you were in back in the fire department? How did that carry over onto the trail?
Well, being a Christian, I in the firehouse, you're there for sometimes 24 hours, and you bring some personal stuff, and so I would bring my Bible and go off and read, and the next thing you know, people would find me reading. Hey, what are you reading? And the Book of Luke, and the next thing you know, you're having a conversation and sharing your faith, and able to do that, and talking about God in conversations, and so evidently so much so that it's very people feel, oh, he's talking about the Bible, talking about God, he must be a priest or something. So they started calling me Father Tom. And it stuck my whole career. I was in several firehouses over the years, and it followed me. Sometimes I'd get into a firehouse, and it would be maybe 6 months or so, and then a detail would come in from my old place or something. And
Father Tom.
oh, Father Tom. So when I was getting ready to retire, and one of the guys, Jason, or Justin rather, he knew about trail names and stuff like that. So he says, hey, don't let me find out that your trail name isn't Father Tom.
Darn right. So you introduced yourself as Father Tom.
Yeah, and it worked. At first it was a little odd, because I didn't, I felt, giving myself my own trail name, and but yet it was given to me. I was just carrying it over.
I did exactly the same.
Did you? Where did Mighty Blue come from?
My soccer team in the UK. They're not in the least bit mighty, but they did wear blue, so I thought that'd be perfect for me as a novice hiker. And I know that you were on the job in New York on 9/11, and without going into detail, how did that period of your life shape the way you see human evil and human goodness and the promises of God that you mentioned when we spoke last week?
Yeah, well, I would say it when bad things happen, a lot of people turn away from God and say, how can, they don't believe in
Sure.
God, or they blame God, and they push away from God. And, I would say that I saw that, and I saw what the, what the Bible says, that that all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And it gave me a chance to see that what true evil is, to think that someone could
Sure.
round up, have people in a plane, innocent people, and do that horrific thing, and it showed me that I the promise of God in the Bible are eternal life with Christ Jesus, and we saw the example of Jesus in the Bible as someone who treated people with dignity and respect, and gave his life
Sure.
so that we could live spiritually with him, eternally. And it was one of those things where it had to make a choice, and it made me cling to God. It made me turn, push into God and say, God, what is this all about?
Sure.
And
by the way, and not wishing to intrude too much into your personal prayer, but did he give you answers that you were happy with at the time? Because I would have think that the overwhelming feeling was that this was human evil. How could it possibly be? How can that person be made by God? Did he give you those answers?
Well, Well, yeah. He gave us a free will. I mean, if he could make us like robots where we do everything exactly as we're supposed to do it, as he's programmed us to. But you stick free will in there, and that's in a sense it's God's business. We can't even fathom how he could manage this all. But yet, if you think about it, if I made people and they just threw it back in my face and did what they wanted to do and sinned against me, the Creator, I would it'd be my right to wipe it out, right? Wipe that creation out and just start all over again. But he loved us so much that he made a way to be reconciled with him, and that's what the Bible in the Old Testament and New points at Jesus Christ as our Savior. So if we're in need of a Savior, then what do we need a Savior from? And we're God's wrath, and that's
Okay.
the Bible is the story of that, how God works that out.
And
I would just say this, like you come to a conclusion where you don't have all the answers. And it does come down to faith and
absolutely
being drawn to
I
God.
understand that bit. I certainly do understand. And
Yeah.
you were able to maintain your work for another 20 years within the FDNY, and that's an amazing thing that you had that long career there. You retired only a couple of years ago. What was the kind of emotional cocktail for you at retirement? Was it relief, loss, excitement, and fear? And where did the idea of a big walk fit into that moment? Because, you must have been thinking, what am I going to do next?
Yeah. No, I was, I actually, I had an injury at work, and they did a CAT scan or an MRI of my head and found a brain tumor. It was a meningioma, non-cancerous, but, after it was taken out, I had to do, they told me don't lift anything, but you can walk. And I just wound up waking up at like 4 a.m. every morning, and I just felt this need to get out of the house and walk. I don't know what it was, but I would walk all around my neighborhood and come back and have breakfast and everything. But as I was walking, I started thinking, all right, it's obviously I'm getting up there in years. I just had this done. I'm probably getting out of the fire service soon, and I started thinking about my youth and unfinished business.
Oh yeah.
And I said maybe I could try it. I got divorced back a few years ago. Not that I wanted to, but that's the way it went. And
Sure.
My kids are self-sufficient, and so they're older, and so I'm like, I'm gonna have the time to do that. So,
yeah, and you certainly did, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, I did.
5,700 miles, yeah.
What do they say? Go big or go home.
That's
huh?
right, yeah. And you mentioned the other day a cross-country trip with your parents as a 10-year-old in
Yes.
their Dodge van. What do you remember most vividly from that trip? And how did that early kind of glimpse of America plant the seed for long-distance walking later on?
Yeah.
Because it did plant the seed in some way, didn't it?
Oh yeah, it did. That was the first seed. We'd go down to Florida. I remember, I was 8-year-old or whatever, going down to Florida and spending time down there. But on the road, driving down, not flying. And then in '75, my father had the time and mother, and they custom fitted a new Dodge van,
Cool.
Sportsman, with all the windows all around so you could see.
Nice.
Yeah. And there was 5 of us, my parents, my brother John, and my sister Lisa. And we went across, and I remember just seeing the land unfold, and there was one point we were out in Nebraska or something, with the cornfields going forever and the wheat fields, and I remember seeing people with backpacks on coming out of the fields, and there was a bus in front of us, and they were getting on the bus, and I remember asking my parents about it. They said, "Oh, those are the hikers, and they're." And evidently, they knew that this was they were getting picked up to be brought to a hostel or something. And it was the first time I heard the word hostel and all
Yes.
that. And so that was the first seed. And then when I was in high school, my mom bought me a book, Peter Jenkins's A Walk Across America. And as I read it, I was living the pages, in my head. It was just, my eyes were wide. I must have read that book, and and the sequel to it, when he met his wife down in New Orleans, Barbara, and then they walked across from New Orleans to he walked from Alfred, New York to New Orleans,
What,
and
just to go on a date?
Yeah, just to go on a date, find himself a wife.
Impressive.
Yeah, and then two of them walked to Oregon. I think over the course of 6 years, the whole trip was. But it was that really put some water on the seed.
So the Dodge journey had sort of planted the seed, but yeah, the water was the book. And so was it a good story, or did it just feel like a dare to you to go and do this sort of thing? Because this is you're still quite young, aren't you? And you hadn't actually been on the AT, and you didn't actually hit the AT until your, I think, 20s. I mean, how did that work
20s.
out?
Well, I had a girlfriend at the time, and so there was a lot of things tying me, and didn't have the same head that I had now to, the perseverance, I guess, or the fortitude to just say I'm going to do it, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so I like someone says, you can't put an old head on young shoulders. So I didn't get it done back then, and so when I was getting out of the fire department, and I knew I was going to have the time, I guess it was just one of those things where I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm not turning around this time.
Well, I've often said, actually, I did my first ever hike at the age of 61 when I did the AT in 2014. And I have often said that I don't think I could have done it as a young man. I don't think I had that fortitude. I don't think I had that resolve to do something which I think you gain when you get older, because you realize there's a limited amount of time left, don't you?
Yeah. And absolutely. But there are some, you see some young folks out there, and some of them, there's, young girls who you see there's nothing to them. They have a backpack that's,
remarkable.
It looks like it's twice the size of yours, and boom, they're 1,400 miles in up here in New York, and going for the whole thing, and it's amazing.
So your failure to do it back then, were you actually setting out to try to do the whole thing in your 20s, or you were just trying to do a bit of it?
No, I was trying to. I actually was starting from New York, and then just getting on the trail. My folks dropped me off at Bear Mountain, and I just was going south.
And then as you referred to earlier, as it happens to all of us, actually, life happened, and in your case, you got married, you had family, then you had this brain tumor, and then the surgery. And this thing about going on those walks. Did those walks feel like rehab or therapy or prayer? What were they for you?
It was just. Yeah, I mean, it was just, all it was I would wake up. I wouldn't even have any control. I'd wake up at 4 a.m, and there was just something in me saying walk. I can't even put a label on it. It was just get out there and walk. And I'd have my headphones in, sometimes listening to music. Sometimes I'd just be thinking, and meeting people around the neighborhood, and just watching the sun come up, and it was nice. But I really couldn't put any label on. And yes, I would pray as I walked sometimes.
And you mentioned you went through a divorce, as I say, and the kids are grown, and life obviously after retirement has shifted. How much of the ECT was about adventure, and how much was it about rebuilding or redefining who you were at 60? Because for some of us, we go out there and we do kind of change our own definition of ourselves. I know I certainly did.
Yeah, no, I just, it was something that was in me from back then. It was just unfinished business. I needed to get the big thing done. So it was, I guess, it's funny because, is it about the journey, the joy in the journey?
Sure.
Where some people are about, hey, listen, I don't care if I get there. I'm enjoying every day going. And there was a guy, Wild Onion. He was up from Connecticut, young guy, and he was going from Springer up to the Canadian border. That was his goal, and he wound up coming over and making it all the way to Cape Gaspe. Yeah. But he had asked me when we got over the border one day, and I was going 100 miles an hour, and he was just kind of thinking back, and he screamed up to me. So I went back to him, and I said, "Yeah, what's up?" Or he came up to me, and he says, "Listen, are you gonna enjoy the scenery or whatever, and see what's around, or are you is it all about like getting the thing done?" I said, and it was a great question, and I thanked him for it later. I said, "You know what? You're absolutely right. I want to get the thing done. I want to do the ECT. I can always come back and with an RV or something in later years, and
Yeah, these people, these people who
that.
tell you it's the journey, not the destination. That's kind of layered bullshit in many ways. And the reason I say that is I know that so many people I've asked in the past, their biggest fear was not finishing, even though they said they were enjoying the journey, and we all do enjoy the journey. We want to get it done. We don't want to go home. In your case, 4,000 miles, knowing there's 1,700 miles to go. So you'd Googled it, you'd seen the ECT. So what, and in your words, what moved it from being an insane idea to I'm actually doing this on January the 1st?
Nimble Will Nomad. He was believe the first one to do the whole thing back in 1998.
Wow.
Which is the year I got married, the year I got on the fire department. And so I was able to, he has his book, 10,000 Steps.
All right.
And I read it, and I probably found out about that book online, and then I read it, and it's basically his journal, and he's a wordsmith. He really can paint a picture with his words. He's fantastic. And I read through it, and it's like, well, there it is. People are doing this, so. And, talk about a kid meeting Babe Ruth, as a he goes out at 87 now and he does trail magic on the Florida Trail. And I was out there one day and all of a sudden I ran, and there was a sign that said, Nimble Will Nomad, ECT, and I look over and he's got his truck over there, and he's got all sorts of trail magic out. And
cool.
I went, and all of a sudden, this guy with the white beard and the white hair comes out from behind the truck, and I was like, "Get out of here! It's really you." And then it wound up. He follows folks up just to see how they're doing along the way, and I was able to. He had a fire going and a pot of coffee on it, and later on in the trip, I got to spend like 45 minutes with him, just sitting in a chair and talking about life. And it winds up that he turned 60. The day he completed the trip. Oh. And I turned 60 in June, so we had that in common.
Oh, you did, didn't you?
Yeah.
So it struck me with what you just said then. The book couldn't have been called 10,000 Steps for 5,700 miles.
Sorry, 10 million steps.
That's like, all right, I got that one. Right, okay, right. Right. And I know you didn't tell your friends and family for a while that you were doing it.
In my family, but there were some neighbors and friends that I didn't tell because I didn't know if I was going to, like I said, get 100 miles, let alone 5,700.
Right. So when did you tell them then?
Well, I probably had about 1,000 miles in, and there was a few people in the neighborhood that I gave a call. They start. My son met with Howie, the guy across the street, and he's like, "Hey, where's your father?" Blah, blah. And so he had to tell him, and then I called him up. I said, "I better call him and just let him know."
just so they're worried, but you're not going to be home for a while. So let's walk through the route a little bit, because it's not just one trail, and there's plenty of road walking. Tell us the trails that make it up.
Well, so you start in Key West, Florida. And that's 108 miles on the Overseas Heritage Trail. Uh-huh. There's a 92-mile connector from Key Largo up to the Glades, up into the Florida Trail, rather, and that goes through the Glades Trail and on the highway. Florida Trail is somewhere. They build the Florida Trail as 1,400 miles, but I think a lot of that is you have options to go around Lake Okeechobee and around Orlando. So I think it's about, I forget, somewhere around 1,300 miles that you do straight, in linear.
Sure.
And then when you get up to a certain point, you can either go left and go down to Fort Pickens to the end of the Florida Trail proper, or you could take a spur going up to Alabama, about 50 miles. And then there's 200 miles of road walk in Alabama because there's no trails. So it's logging roads, back roads, highways, everything. And that gets you up to the Coosa Trail, which is only about 11 miles long, to the Pinhoti Trail, which takes you from Alabama over into Georgia. Yeah. Hooks up with the Benton MacKaye Trail, and that takes you to Springer. And then, and it's kind of confusing because the Benton MacKaye Trail and the Appalachian Trail kind of mix with each other. So you see people that are going north on the Appalachian Trail, you're going south on the Benton MacKaye Trail, and then you wind up meeting up with them later, and you're like, "What are you doing here? I thought you were going that way." So, and then that, you get to Springer, and you do the Appalachian Trail, when you get over to Katahdin, you make it over Katahdin, and then you go into Baxter State Park, which puts you on, and you hook up with the International Appalachian Trail, which takes you all the way up to Cape Gaspé. And Cape Gaspé used to be the northern terminus of the International Appalachian Trail and the Eastern Continental Trail. But then someone decided that there's the Appalachian chain ran through Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland, and so they added 850 miles on.
Special treat. It's a bonus at the end.
Yeah, when I got to Cape Gaspé, I was like, I really could be done now.
Oh, that's funny. And what about those road walks, though? I think that would really get me mentally. How do you cope with that?
Oh, there's just a perseverance, I guess, to know, listen, this is just part of it. And, if this is what it is, it is. I mean, because, you just in my head, I think logically about it and say, hey, listen, people own this land. They couldn't get the trail from here to there without walking on the road. So it's just practically, what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
And, but not to say that made me happy to do it, but I wasn't going to cut it out. I wasn't going to say, well, I'm not doing this part or I'm doing that part. Sure. It was like, if that's the trail, that's what it is. The people that came before me that have done it, have done this, so I got to do it.
Well, to reduce it to just Appalachian Trail terms, I know some people don't like Pennsylvania, and the rocks are tough and all that sort of thing, which they are. But I always think it is still part of the trail. This is what you sign up for, so kind of get over it. And it's one of those things.
Yeah.
And I think I would kind of feel that way about these 200-mile road walks. So I must admit, the thought of them right now, oh my gosh, what a nightmare.
Yeah. Well, it started in Key West. The whole 108 miles of right from the get-go is road walk.
Oh, God, yeah.
Well,
it has to be, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. That's what you're basically. It's like almost like a fish skeleton. You're walking down the middle of it, and all the good stuff is going on to the the peripherals down. The people going out on boats and things like the beaches, and you're going down the service road in the middle.
Gosh. Yeah, I would like that.
But I was looking at some of the pictures on the TV last night and the videos and of me walking through. And just, it was beautiful. It was almost, you were out in the middle of the ocean, but on a bridge, especially like the 7 Mile Bridge.
Yeah, gosh. Yeah, by the way, where'd you go to the loo on the 7 Mile Bridge?
They say do not drink a lot before you do not drink a lot and make sure you're
empty.
You got business taken care of before you get on that thing. Exactly. Because there's nowhere to go.
And the other day, I think I asked you, because of these road walks, how long it was before you actually enjoyed the trail, and you referred to a Seminole church as a moment of significance. Tell us about that day.
Well, meeting people along the way, started meeting people along the way. And there was times when you weren't with anybody, it was just you. And so at you talking about Big Cypress?
Yeah.
Yeah, Big Cypress. So when we got onto the Seminole Indian land and the church there, Big Cypress Baptist Church, they have a ministry there that is, it's the best on any trail. It's they have plenty of room in the back to put tents up, and there was quite a few people there. When I got there, my tent was the first up, and the next thing you know, by the time I left there was probably 7 tents up. And they have a fellowship hall where they have a full commercial kitchen. You can go in and it's open all night, and you're able to go in there and get food out of the fridge and everything, and just or just sit and enjoy the indoors in a chair with cushion on it and a table and lights and bathrooms. And then outside they have a shower house, bathroom, and a washer and dryer. And it's a real reprieve, especially after going through the swamps.
Yeah, I would think so. We need more of those on the trail, don't we?
Yeah. And that was one of the you walk through all that mud, and it was a relatively dry year from what I understand, but you were still up to your knees sometimes in water and your ankles in mud. And it's funny, you find out there's different types of mud. Some will take your shoe off, and some you slip like ice. And boy, it's exhausting.
Tell me about it. I do know that bit. Yeah. And with 5,700 miles to go, I'd imagine that you unlike Earl Schaefer with his book Walking with Spring, you're actually being chased up the continent by the seasons. Did you have to keep pushing in order to stay ahead of these changing seasons?
No, I mean, you can only push so far, but I mean, looking back, I probably would have done more miles. I mean, you can only do what you can do. Again, I was a novice at this. I wasn't. This is my first through hike, whereas some people were coming on doing from. This was the triple. Like one guy I met at Big Cypress was Iceman, who was he was doing the Eastern Continental Trail as his triple crown, the third leg of his triple crown.
Nice.
And he did complete about 3 weeks before I did.
Excellent.
And he was just a wealth of knowledge. And we walked together after Big Cypress, after the church hostel, and learned a lot from him. He was very, very. It was a lot of fun walking with him.
So you did all these trails. You hit the AT. You carried on up to the AT, and somewhere near, I think it was in Vermont, the Over the Hill gang came together. What did you find in that group of guys around your own age that you were missing at the time?
So we stayed at the Old Colony Ski Club,
right.
And I got in there, and it was a Saturday, I believe, and so I was getting in there with the idea, because I had been making church every Sunday. I made it a point to be in church every Sunday wherever I was. Down in Florida, the only place where I wasn't able to get out of the swamp when I was in there, so I didn't make church the second week out there. But anyway, so I had a room to myself, and the next thing you know, I guess they overbooked or whatever, and next thing you know, Freebird, a guy named Freebird was in we were sharing a room together with two bunks, and we just hit it off, and next thing you know, I met all the guys when we went downstairs to eat, and the crew he was with, the Over the Hill gang, and they had just, I thought they'd been together the whole time, but then finding out later they had kind of come together.
Sure. I mean, Dave mentioned quite early on, in fact, for quite a long time, how alone he'd been. And he was grateful to meet all those guys. And I know, and the reason I'm asking this is because I know that at one point, and it may have been around this time, you were really exhausted and questioning whether you'd finish. What were the warning signs for you? Were you running down physically, mentally, or spiritually?
Well, yeah, probably physically and mentally. Physically, I was just feeling, I was feeling a little depleted. I had switched back in North Carolina. I was cold soaking, and then when my son came down with his wife and the three grandkids, I asked him to bring all my stuff, and I kind of went through it, and I switched back to he brought my stove,
sure.
And I switched over, and I had a lot of freeze dried meals and stuff, and getting a lot more calories, and I bulked up. At one point, I was down probably a little over 20 pounds, and so by the time I was up there, I had gained a bunch of the weight back, but I just wasn't feeling. It was probably more mental than physical, but we got dropped off. We did a zero there, I think, and then we got dropped off at the trailhead, and I wound up staying with them, and I talked to Dave and talk about, well, I want to get here, and he has a way of selling me, selling his plan, and I tell you, he's a great planner, he would explain to me, like, if you do this and you do that, you're going to wind up in the same place, and then you'll get to a church on Sunday, and I'd be like, yeah, he's right. and it was really, I was so glad that I did, even though I probably, wanted to, in my head, all I wanted to do was,
get there,
do as many miles as I could.
Sure.
It was so nice to just have a conversation and the camaraderie between all of us, and talking about, we were all around the same age, and, just talking about 70s TV shows or making reference to the thing, and people actually understand what you're talking about. It was great. Yeah.
And you've actually wondered out to me the other day if those long lunches by the lakes were exactly what your body needed.
You know what? Looking back, it was exactly what I needed. And, being a man of faith, I say, you know what? God brought me to them, and they were just what they were just what the doctor ordered. But yeah, it was Freebird, Obi-Wan, Water Slide, Ghost Dog, Fission, and Ferrari, who was from Italy.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, good guys.
I want to talk to you about the trail provides because you've got a bit of a twist on it, but I'll come back to that in a minute. And obviously, you all summited Katahdin together, and then your paths split. What was it like waking up after Katahdin, knowing that your friends were done and you still had roughly 1,500 miles north into Canada to go?
Well, it was just I just had to turn the page and look forward. I watched them go back, and I knew they were going to get picked up by their wives and stuff, and other folks, and just be enjoying dinner at a restaurant that night, and there I was going over the knife's edge.
Were you down? Were you down at that moment?
Was I down? I was. It was probably, again, like everything is complicated. I was down, and I was excited as well. Down, but I'm like, wow, I got the Appalachian Trail behind me, and who knows what God's got ahead of me. Like who I'm going to meet and the beautiful things I'm going to see, and and it was everything is.
Well,
sometimes I think way too much.
Well, that's the thing I want to talk about now. You got this lovely twist on the phrase "the trail provides." You say God provides through the trail. Can you share a moment when you felt that very clearly, where you needed, what you needed arrived just at the right time? Because it happens to all of us, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Over the Hill gang, for one thing. That was, and again, I didn't see it right away, but looking back. Sometimes you don't see that. When it's happening, you're in the moment, and you look back and you go, I felt like it was holding me back at the time,
right?
But looking back, it may, like you said before, it may be exactly what I needed to just relax and spend some time enjoying the moments and the camaraderie of people there. And I mean, Iceman had mentioned early on, the phrase or that. The best part of the trip, the best part of the trail is the people that you meet. That's a saying out there, and I definitely would agree with that. That's because even when you look at the pictures, there was a guy who was what do they call he drove me a few times.
Shuttle driver.
Yes, yeah. And so he his name was No Joke. Right. And he, we were talking about how pictures and taking pictures, and he grabs the phone out of my hand and he takes a picture of both of us, a selfie of both of us, and he says, "You got to take pictures of people." He says, "You're going to look back and you're going to say, I got all these pictures of trees and everything like that, and you're going to say, oh, I wish I had a picture of this one and that group, and that's one of the regrets. I wish. Oh, but it's awkward sometimes taking. Hey, can I take your picture?
It shouldn't be, because it is one of the big regrets that a lot of us have out there. I'm sure that when you look back now, the things that are in the forefront of your mind are the faces, not the landscapes, and so that's a real good lesson to learn, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And you had a simple, quiet practice asking people, how can I pray for you today?
Yeah.
What are one or two answers to that question that really stayed with you?
Well, it's like I said, when I started, I just prayed that God this wouldn't be just a bucket list thing for me. As a Christian, I said, God, you use me, fill my mind with your thoughts and your words. And guide my interactions with the people on the trail. And so I just early on down when I was in the Keys, I just, even if I stopped in for a Coke, or something like that at a deli, and hey, how can I, talk with the guy behind the counter, and and maybe the first guy, his dad had cancer, and I was praying for him, and you just find that even if I didn't bring up God or anything like that, they knew. Hey, someone's praying for me. And it invoked everything from people putting their hand out, going, "Oh, I don't believe any of that stuff." Don't, or people with tears in their eyes telling you their life story and what they needed prayer for. And one guy, he was him and his wife were walking through. They were just day hiking down from Michigan, and he did that. He put his hand out, said he don't believe any of that stuff, and he says, "Hey, have you ever seen a miracle?" And I looked around this beautiful forest and this beautiful ecosystem where the trees give out carbon dioxide, give out oxygen, and we give out carbon dioxide, and there's this, and I'm thinking to myself, do you realize that this is a miracle? Like just the fact that we can talk, we can hear, we can see all this beauty, and how much more intricate, are our bodies and everything,
Sure.
and brains. So it was interesting. It was nice to be able to. And when we were done, he said to me, he says, I've enjoyed this debate, he called it. And in my head, I was like, it's not a debate. I'm giving you the facts here.
I often get people say, I know you don't believe, but I'm praying for you. And I wish they wouldn't put that rider in there, because I'm always grateful if somebody says they'll pray for me, because it's something they believe. I don't have the faith myself, but I don't doubt at all. I totally respect that other people truly believe that, and because they do, that's important to them, and it becomes important to me. I don't think I would say I don't believe any of that. I would say, I'd appreciate that, but I wouldn't expound any further than that. And I certainly wouldn't regard it as a debate. I think it's a pointless conversation. Like politics and religion, you just stay away from. And most people on the trail anyway, because people are in their own silos anyway, in and out of faith. And I don't think people will get involved. Yours is such a simple, quiet practice, which I think was a really nice thing to hear about anyway. So you got there. Most people see differences in themselves after a long hike. Are you different now because of that 10-month walk from Key West to the top of the continent, or are you just the same guy?
No, I think I'm the same guy. I don't know if it's something wrong with me or I'm able to, like when I got on the trail, I was on the trail, and when I got off the trail, I was off the trail. I tell you, there's a little adjustment that goes on.
Sure.
I find there's days, where I'm fine, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, I want to do everything. All right, I got to get this done. I got to do that, and then like an hour later, I'll be like, I don't want to do anything.
And that's fine.
So I'm fine. I'm back, but I'm finding a balance.
Sure. I'm sure you'll continue to do that as time goes on, and I'm sure you'll find, especially with your faith as well, it will unfold other things over time. You think you always need time to think about these things. I mean, you've only been back for how long now? A couple of weeks? 3 weeks?
Yeah. What's today? The 15th, 16th?
17th.
Yes, about 2 weeks.
Right. So what's next for you then, Tom?
Wow. It's funny you say that, because Freebird just put out, we have a group text, and Freebird just put out something about the PCT in 2027. He's pushing.
Course.
I told him he put out something a while ago, and I said I don't want to make any decisions about anything I'm doing. Let me finish one thing first and get back. But I've said along the way, in the end, I don't think I would do anything this long again. If I did the Pacific Crest Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, probably do it in sections. But it's funny how just him putting out that text kind of makes me wonder if maybe if I was walking with those guys or some of those guys, maybe that would be doable.
Well, look, I really appreciate you coming on, sharing the story with us. I respect your faith. I respect your journey, and I'm sure our listeners have really enjoyed listening to you. So thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Mighty Blue. Thank you so much, and look forward to talking to you in the future.
Okay, buddy. Take it easy, okay?
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. God bless.
What a fine bloke, eh? He spoke with conviction about his faith, and that wonderful offer of, how can I pray for you, was so generous and open-hearted that I'm sure many people were grateful for his kind words. I know that when I first heard of Tom through Dave, I was wondering then what he'd feel like as the others summited Katahdin. He still had miles and miles to go by himself. But he was a pragmatic guy who could take that as it came and face the job at hand, which was to get to the end. I think I may have struggled with that myself. Now I'd like you all to meet Tayson Whitaker, who's the owner of Outdoor Vitals and an impressive guy. We spoke earlier this week, and Tayson and his company is the first of a few gear companies I'll be introducing to you in the coming weeks. Here he is. We're on today with Tayson. Is it Tyson or Tayson?
Tayson.
Tayson Whitaker. Very unusual name. Hi, Tayson. How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Not too bad. And you're the owner. You started Outdoor Vitals, and I recently bought something from you guys, recommended by one of my listeners. And it was the clear plastic or it's not plastic, whatever it is that goes inside a backpack for my through hike next year. And I learned there's a hell of a lot more about the organizer, your company, than I thought in the first place. So tell me about how Outdoor Vitals came into being.
Yeah, we're 11 years old now, so it's been a minute. I started the company pretty shortly out of college, and my goal was to do everything direct to consumer. I grew up in the outdoors a lot in a small town, small community, but I always had just like the cheapest gear you could imagine, right? Walmart type gear, great value stuff, and so when I got into college, I started to buy some of my own gear, and it was really life changing. I was like a Boy Scout, an Eagle Scout, and so like I bought like a good sleeping bag or a good backpack, and it was just like, holy cow, this is what quality stuff can do. And so my idea at that time was, well, let me do this direct to consumer and make high end gear and do it direct to consumer and cut 40-50% out of the price tag of what, like, say, REI would put in their pocket, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was the concept. And I started with sleeping bags and just started making down sleeping bags. And then from there, just kept designing more and more products.
How did you get to know how to do it?
Yeah. So funny enough, when I was in college, I put in a job offer, or I tried to apply for a job with a company that was doing some import-export work and selling products online. And I never heard back from them. And so a month later, I walked in and said, hey, I'm going to work here, whether you like it or not. I'm going to come in here during my lunch breaks and I'm going to sweep the floor. I'm going to do something, because I wanted to learn what they were doing. I wanted to learn how to find a factory, how to design things, how to manufacture things, how to sell things. And so I did just that, just sort of volunteering time at this company, and did that for about a month. And then they offered me a job. And so while I was in college, I was also kind of getting this firsthand experience. I was running all their finances, and then I took over all their marketing, and just got a lot of firsthand experience of what it's like to.
You sound like you're a glutton for work, by the way. You really do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of like work for an education, not for money, was the thought at the time. And yeah, I don't know, tried to be responsible, I kind of have that thing in me where you just always are trying to improve and trying to learn and trying to grow. And so I think that makes it easy for more and more jobs to have gotten handed off to me. Mm-hmm. And it gave me that first row seat to how the whole business was working.
So how did Outdoor Vitals come into being, though? Because it takes a whole lot to go from working for somebody and drawing a paycheck to drawing no paycheck, I suspect, when you start out. How did you actually implement what you were going to do?
Yeah, so I started sourcing different manufacturers and different sleeping bags, down sleeping bags in particular, and didn't have much money at the time. So I was buying samples from factories and kind of looking at them, testing them out. And then I made a couple small tweaks in how to make some samples, and then I just sold the samples. And I took that money and I literally bought more samples. I was calling it my inventory, but to the factory, I'm buying samples. Right. And so I just kept doing that. I bought, I went from 1 bag to 3 bags, to 5 bags, to 10 bags, to, eventually I was buying 50 bags at a time, and it just grew and grew and grew. And so, yeah, it's very unconventional, right? Because most people, it seems like this is their third business when they start an outdoor brand, and they've got money and capital, and maybe they're older in life. But ours was just 100% bootstrapped, no other owners, no outside funding, just pure organic and just refining products.
How long did you run it like that for? Or you're not still doing it that way? You must have had some funding by now, haven't you? And new owners, other owners?
No other owners. Nope.
Just you?
Nope. Just me.
Man. So how did you develop it over the years then? How did you grow? How do you market yourself?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I studied finance in school, but I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I knew I also needed to learn how to market. And so, I just started studying marketing at a young age. I read books. I liked the psychology of sales, and I just knew it was important. I did door-to-door sales one summer. It was awful, but I learned a lot, and that just gave me a firsthand seat to learning marketing, kind of in the game of marketing per se. And so I wrote all of our copy. I took all of our photos. I edited all of our photos in the beginning. I would just self-teach. The internet is a really amazing thing. And at that point in time, it was still, on the newer front of things. And so, sometimes I was buying courses. Sometimes you're just watching tons of YouTube on how the heck do you use Photoshop, right? That wasn't like an education I had. And
that's how I built my first website, literally watching somebody do it on YouTube, copying exactly what they did, using my words instead of his. And there was suddenly at the end of it, there's a website. And it's a process, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it really is. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is just stick with it, right? You just have to be persistent over a long period of time.
So where are you now?
It's so easy to get distracted.
So where are you now? I mean, what's the status of the company now? Are you looking to expand more? Or could I say I'd not heard of you? So I not that I'm a great gearhead at all. I'm not at all a gearhead, but I'm going on an AT hike next year, so I needed the bag liner. But you do so much more stuff. So what are your most popular items then right now?
Yeah, our most popular items. We do a lot in apparel. So we sell a lot of jackets, a lot of sun hoodies, but really we have just an entire layering system. So we're out here in the West. We're in Utah. We do a lot of backpacking in the West, and so we've built just an entire kit for really any, whether you're hiking in the desert. I'm about 45 minutes away from the desert, or I can be 45 minutes to an 11,000 foot peak here.
Sure.
And so we do a lot with clothing. We started, like I say, with sleeping bags that's still one of our best sellers, top quilts. And then we do have a line of backpacks that are some of our top sellers as well. So we've really got a whole range of things that we do at this point. But yeah, it just depends on the time of year. In the wintertime, we crush it with jackets. We have a lot of really, really good down jackets. And kind of back to your point on growing the business just as an individual instead of having partnership and outside funding, we've used programs like Kickstarter. So when we launched our very first apparel piece, that was 2018, we actually took $1 million in pre-orders on that jacket.
Wow.
And that kicked off our apparel. And so it's just been going ever since then.
Yeah, I would think it did. So I looked, my apologies for being late, as I say, and I looked at your website this morning, but I intended to look at it for 20 minutes before we actually started talking again. And I noticed you have got some name brands there as well.
Yes.
How does that work out then? I mean, how do you sell that in relation to... there's a well-known sock company, let's say.
Yeah.
How do you sell those in relation to how they sell those?
Yeah. So our thought process is we want to take care of our customer. And so there's certain things that we don't want to design and build ourselves, or at least not at this point in time. And so we will retail complementary products so that our website can kind of be a one-stop shop. So one thing that we also have is a membership, and you can think of it like it's a store credit membership. Right. And so $10 into the account every month just gets saved. But our members are the only people that can buy these other items. So if you want a pair of Darn Tough socks or a water filter or something like that, if you're a member, you can use your credit to buy these other complimentary things so that we can really be a one-stop shop. And then those things that we offer, they're things that we believe in, we've tested, we've used ourselves.
Sure.
So it just makes it really easy for our customers to come in and just completely outfit themselves.
I mean, I'm looking for a number of different things right now. Now, all my gear is quite old. I've done 2 through hikes, the Appalachian Trail in my 60s. So now in my 70s, I'm going again. So I need, my tent is a bit worn out now. So I'm looking at tents. You don't have, am I right in saying you don't have tents?
We are in between phasing out another tent and introducing a new tent.
Okay.
Our newer tent will be released in Q1.
All right. Okay.
So we're kind of don't really have a tent option at the current moment.
I thought I noticed that. Yeah. And what about backpacks?
Yes. So we have a handful of backpacks. We have our Shadowlight, which has been our best seller for years. And that's a piece that was really designed to kind of balance an ultralight backpack, but something that still has features and some compartmentalizations and options. And we actually just redesigned that piece after launching it in, I think, 2020. So we just barely launched our new version a month or 2 ago, and we put in a carbon fiber frame into it. And it's an incredible pack. I mean, my personal opinion on it is I think it's the best carrying ultralight pack out there. It's still sub 2 pounds, but we definitely love packs.
Tell me why do you think that? I mean, the terrible thing is with trying to buy new gear, and I'd forgotten how, there wasn't as much available when I first went in 2014. There was more in 2019. There's just tons of stuff now, both tents and packs. It's almost impossible to know why one is better than another. And you say that you think it's one of the best packs. So tell me, why is it one of the best packs?
Yeah. So we spend a lot of time on load carry and managing that out here in the West, especially. There's times when you've got to carry 4 to 6 liters of water plus your gear, or like I did a section hike on the Colorado Trail this summer. We did 6 days with no resupply. So load carry is just really important to us, and sometimes we're carrying heavy. And so the things that we build into our packs kind of revolve around that. So one of the things is we use full size frames. We're using 23, 24 inch frames, which gives you a proper frame to get up and above your shoulders and allow you to shift the weight off of your shoulders and down into your hip belt. We spend a lot of time on hip belts. The carbon fiber itself is a big part of why this pack has taken another step up in comfort. And the best way to describe that is if you think of like a fishing pole, like a carbon fiber fishing pole or something, right? When you start to bend it, it's easy to bend, and the more it bends, the stiffer it gets. And that's how the frame works to an extent. I'm not saying it's flimsy. What I'm saying, though, is that as you move or you bend or you twist, that frame can move more with you instead of a rigid piece of aluminum, or on your back. Sure. And so we actually developed it initially just to save a couple of ounces in weight. But after we had one pack with a carbon fiber frame and one with an aluminum frame, anytime we switched back, it was really noticeable, the difference in the comfort of the two. So now we're switching everything to carbon fiber frames only.
Right. So are you in shops at all, or are you just online?
No. So we're direct to consumer still.
Right. So, that's the difficulty, isn't it? Because you can't go in and try a pack on. I know that, and my listeners know this already because I say it all the time, you really should get your pack fitted to you. Because I'm a big guy. I'm about 6'1", 6'2", and heavy. But I was told when I went to Z-Packs, when I fitted my last pack, I needed a medium frame. I didn't know that. I've never been medium anything in my life. And so what guidance do you give is there a bit of a process to go through when you order a pack with you guys, what that sort of pack they should get? Yeah,
that's a really good point. I remember we had an employee that was like 6'4", and he was a small torso. Right.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you really do need to notice that. And the easiest way to do that is to actually know your total height and then the inseam of your pant. And between those two, you can back into what the size of your torso is.
Really?
Yeah, it's right, because if I'm 6'2" and my inseam is say 34 inches, I'm probably a medium torso. But if my inseam was 30 inches and I'm 6'2", I'm probably a large torso, right? Because my torso is making up more that distance. So that's a good way to do it. But just like you say, it's a battle, and so we offer a couple programs. We offer like a free return program, but we also offer like a try before you buy, so you can actually buy. Like if you're in a crunch or something, you could also just get 2 packs and see which one fits you and then send one back.
Sure.
But yeah, it's a challenge for us, but it's something that's really core to who we are, because if we were not direct to consumer and we weren't just operating out of our own facility here, then you've got retailers and you've got retail markups.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. I understand entirely. Well, look, I'm glad you're more than just the inner lining of my backpack whenever I choose one. I'm going to check out the Shadowlight anyway, but I appreciate you coming on and telling us about the organisation, and I wish you well in the future.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.
I told you he was impressive, didn't I? I particularly love how he inserted himself in that business as an intern. He was willing to work to learn. A good lesson in itself, and he was soon doing their finances, then their marketing. That's remarkable, and a great lesson for people of all ages, I think. I mentioned him again in my accountability blog, where I recommend you check out his website, outdoorvitals.com, if you don't know it. It is worthy of your time for the information it gives out, as well as the range of goods on offer. Interesting stuff. Shout-outs this week goes to our donors, with regular monthly donors Glenn Ferguson, Kendall Poliquette and Eric Gross still with us, and a new Buy Me a Coffee member, Rob Reale, while Alan Troy converted over to Buy Me a Coffee from our donor list. Thanks to you all for keeping the show going. It is always much appreciated. Finally, today we've got the latest instalment in my accountability blog. This week I talk mainly gear, with a couple of big decisions imminent. Here it is. With Thanksgiving tomorrow, my start date of March the 10th keeps edging closer and closer, and I'm in full acquisition mode. Haven't actually had too much stuff delivered this week, but I've narrowed down 2 of the large items to a couple of choices, and we'll be talking about those choices over the next couple of weeks. When we had our last Buy Me a Coffee members Zoom call, one of the things that was suggested was to get some gear supplies on the show. That got me thinking, and I thought it would be cool to have some of them on the show to talk about the decisions I'm going to be making in the coming weeks. Hopefully they'll be able to inform those decisions. In today's show, as you've already heard, we got Tayson Whitaker to talk about Outdoor Vitals, the company he put together some years back, and a company I bought a small item from a few weeks ago. I posted on Facebook that I was looking for some of those compactor bags to put inside my new pack, whenever I got it, to keep my stuff safe and dry. Barry Hill, a friend of the show, suggested Outdoor Vitals, and I bought a couple of their bags. They're made of nylofume, something I've never heard of before, and they are a terrific option, being see-through, not white as I'd originally wanted. I checked them out in my old backpack, and it really makes a difference to be able to see through them, more than I'd imagined that it would. Anyway, once I'd spoken with Tayson, I started to look at his website more thoroughly, and for a little while I was seriously considering his Shadowlight backpack. In the end, I decided against it because I didn't see the value, to me, of having a pack accessible through a zip at the rear. It also seemed to constrain the use of the 2 mesh pockets at the back as well. It took a couple of days making that decision, so I certainly didn't dismiss it out of hand, and it does look like a beautifully made pack. Tayson made the point that Outdoor Vitals is big into apparel, so I snagged a pair of hiking pants from his site to see how they are. I'll let you know what they're like when I get them. What did make a big impression on me was a section on the site referring to an adaptive layering system, and I urge you all to check it out. It's well put together, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm going to be getting new base layers and sleeping layers, so I'll update you on my progress there in the coming weeks. The only thing that actually turned up this week was a new fanny pack, or bum bag as we call them in the UK. In 2019, I bought one from Seatug, or Chicken Tramper Ultralight Gear, when I saw somebody with one at a shelter soon after the NOC. I love the look of it, and its utility has been outstanding over the years, so I've certainly had good service from it. Recently, however, the zip started to fail, so I thought I was due a new one. This time, instead of getting the 1 litre bag, I went for the 2.5 litre one, and it is a beaut. My previous one was mighty blue coloured, of course, but I went for the all black one this year. It feels like a real upgrade, and I'm looking forward to using it on the AT next year. As I mentioned that I've narrowed down my choices for tent and backpack, I may as well let you know what those choices are. For the tent, having been a real fan of Z-Packs over the years, and I didn't rule them out immediately, I've decided to go for a Durston this time. I'll be interviewing Dan Durston in the next week or so to help me make the final decision between the X-Mid line of tents and the newer X-Domes. Both of them look freaking awesome, but if I had to make the choice today, it would probably be with the X-Dome. But Dan may change my mind, so I'm looking forward to having that conversation with him and pulling the trigger on my final choice. As for the packs, so many of you have written to me, and the clear favourite amongst quite a few of you is the Hyperlight Mountain Gear range of packs. Max Keel from HMG is coming on the show to tell me about those, but once again, the Unbound 55 litre would be my choice today if I was heading out tomorrow, so we'll have to see how that conversation goes as well. I'd love to hear from you what you think about those choices. Write to me at steve@hikingradionetwork.com and give me your 10 cents worth. And by the way, I've been delighted how engaged many of you are with this accountability blog and enjoying hearing what I've been up to. As you all know, preparation has never been a thing with me, so I hope you're learning as much as I am. To conclude this week, I'm on to week 4 of my training with Luis, my personal trainer. We meet every Monday, and he's lined up a whole program to take me through the rest of the week. As I say, this is week 4, so we'll move on to phase 2 next week, and a whole new set of exercises to step up the pace a bit. I can definitely feel the benefits so far. I mean, I still haven't dropped more than a few pounds, but I'm far stronger in my legs and my arms, and crucially, my heart rate seems to be operating at a lower level than it normally does when I walk in my neighbourhood. I know it's hardly field conditions, but last Sunday I went for a 5-mile walk at a consistent pace of 3.2 miles an hour, and my heart rate barely got above 100, maybe 102, 103 beats per minute. Only a few months ago that would have been in the mid-110s, maybe even 120, and the pace would not have been as consistent. My recovery has been faster as well, so I'm really happy with that. And once again, I want to thank those of you who chose to write to me about my despondency, I suppose, about this slow weight loss, as well as my efforts to cram more protein into my body. You were all encouraging, and I appreciated every message I received. I'm still struggling with the protein, but I'll work it out. So that's it for another week. I kept at it, I didn't miss a session, and the gear is coming together. You may not be that excited, but I'm so delighted at the way things have gone so far. So on this Thanksgiving Day, I'm so grateful for that. Having been such a Z-Packs guy for the past 6 or 7 years, I feel a bit sad to be moving away from them for this trip, though I am considering buying one of their kilts for the rain. I'm excited for you guys to meet Dan Durston and Max Keel in the next couple of weeks. I'm even more excited about getting my new tent and pack. I'll see you all next week.